Good evening, I'm Shane Jones. Leading the news at 7. Grantley Adams Memorial Secondary School is on the road to recovery after violence there sparked outrage and forced a 2-day closure of the institution as teachers expressed fear and concern. Principal Valdez Francis is now speaking out about some of the problems facing the school and what his staff is doing to address them. Kareem Smith reports.
Just weeks after a stabbing rocked the Grantley Adams Memorial, all is calm as the school seeks to return to a state of normalcy. However, Principal Valdez Francis says there's still some cause for concern. Just over 2 weeks ago, the atmosphere was one of fear and anxiety after a stabbing resulted in injuries to 4 students, forcing a shutdown of the school for 2 days. After intense counseling for both students and teachers, Principal Valdez Francis says the school is now battling the spirit of fear.
As I said to them earlier, storms don't last forever. So sometimes, every now and again, you get a storm, but they don't last forever. So we have to keep that in focus so that you do not see everything as a storm. Wind is just sometimes just a little blowing wind. Yeah. So you try to. We're not reducing the seriousness of it. But what we are trying to do is get people to have a mindset that would help to reduce the fear.
The stabbing incident not only affected those at the school, but it also added fire to a raging debate about a supposed spike in teenage violence.
We'll talk about bringing metal detectors in schools, or is it something that you've given any thought to?
We have to keep our spaces safe, so whatever is lawful to be used to help us to keep our spaces safe, then we will look at those things.
In your experience, are these instances of violence becoming more frequent? I know you would hear people saying, well, yeah, they're more frequent, that kind of thing, but we haven't seen any statistics.
We had fights too in schools and stuff like that, but never the amount of weapons I see and the size of the weapon going forward. That is that's a new feature, and I believe that is coming out of the gang culture.
That culture is also making it difficult for authorities to nip potentially harmful situations in the bud.
You know, the whole thing about the snitch, everybody calling this body a snitch for providing the information. Whereas if the police had or the authorities had that information, it could save other lives. Like we saw there in Florida, the FBI had information. It wasn't acted on, and 17 people lost their lives.
As the school continues on the path to recovery, Mr. Francis is hoping for a greater effort from parents in keeping schools and the wider society safe. Along with a constant message of love, he says Grantley Adams will also be reviewing its curriculum to provide more programs tailored to the needs of students. As for the future of those involved in the stabbing, he says that's up to law enforcement and officials from the Education Ministry. Kareem Smith, Cbc News.
The Barbados Secondary Teachers Union is anxious to meet with the Minister of Education, Ronald Jones, to discuss the worrying issue of rising violence in schools. The BSTU had issued an ultimatum to the ministry to meet with them yesterday to discuss the matter. The ministry reportedly responded last Friday, requesting more time as the minister, along with the permanent secretary, would be overseas. President Marianne Redmond says the BSTU had indicated to education officials they will be willing to meet this Friday. She tells CBC teachers are not happy and are concerned about the escalating trend.
They are and have expressed their discontent with the fact that this is something that we saw evolving over the years and worsening, and we have been asking for a meeting in excess of 3 years. We were promised a series of meetings over 2 years ago. A special committee was supposed to have been set up to examine the problem. Roughly 2 years ago, just about 2 months short now of 2 years ago. And the feeling is that had this been done, had the proper steps been taken based on full dialogue and consultation, then the recent situations could have been avoided. They are concerned not only for their own safety, but the safety of the children over whom they have the duty of care.
Police and metal detectors have no place in our island schools. This from Independent Senator Professor Sir Henry Fraser, who came out in support of Education Minister Ronald Jones's stance on the matter. He says the presence of police in the schools undermines the authority of the principals. Senator Fraser believes what is needed is in-depth training for teachers on how to manage difficult children.
Teachers need in-service training in dealing with recalcitrant children. And I'm going to say that again, Madam President, because it is critical. Teachers are trained to teach with the assumption that everyone will sit there silently interacting when asked to and will behave perfectly, and that none of them come from broken homes and that none of them are rebellious. And teachers need in-service training. It cannot all be left to the one school counselor to deal with 1,000 children and resolve their issue.
Thousands of Barbadians will have to change the way they communicate while driving. Taking effect from today, motorists are prohibited from driving or operating a vehicle while holding and using a cellular phone. It is a prohibition that will affect a large percentage of the commuting public. Here's what some Barbadians had to say.
As a taxi man, that's how you get your calls. You understand? Your business, your phone calls go come through your phone. So I really know that's going to work out.
It's a very good thing because as a driver, I realized that a lot of drivers drive and use cell phones, and they lost control sometimes. I had a lot of encounter with drivers using cell phones. Had not for a horn, it'll be accidents. So it's a very good law.
I've seen it a lot nowadays. It's getting very reckless. So it's a good act.
I think it's about time really. It's long overdue. It's ridiculous. When you see Instagram, people, social media, everybody recording, snapping and driving. Like, seriously, pay attention to the road.
Most of us are culprits, but I think it's an extremely good thing to do. Long overdue.
I think it's a good initiative in terms of people using the phone while driving and stuff like that. I don't know if the public was given a lot of information about it because I only heard about it today and on social media, but I think it's good.
I think it's a great idea. In my country, we will pay a good price actually if the police will see us. So it's good and it's safe on the road.
I think it's wise. I personally don't like using my cell phone when I'm driving. I used to work for a bank and I always had a cell phone, and it always surprised me when it rang when I'm driving because I tell everyone at work I'm not answering my phone when I'm in my car because I'm not taking one hand off of my steering wheel just to answer a phone. So I think it's a very good thing, and I don't think it impairs with anything that we are trying to do with our cell phones, that is communicate, because once upon a time we had to wait till we got wherever we were going to use a phone. So we're now in a much better position, but that doesn't mean that we should put anyone's lives at stake, ours or anyone else on the road.
Attorney General Adriel Brathwaite has identified the absence of evidence-based research as an obstacle to the fight against crime. The Carry Secure Task Force, which will give law enforcement the chance to create a strategy to crime and violence based on data and solid evidence, is expected to help fix the problem. During the launch of Carry Secure, which is a UN and US aid-sponsored program, the AG described the lack of crime data as one of the most frustrating challenges of his tenure.
The police has information on an offender. He goes to the prison, and the prison starts from scratch without any information whatsoever, although the information is somewhere a couple of miles away. So hopefully, out of this exercise, that this will become a thing of the past so that we can indeed make more informed decisions.
The AG also expressed his concern about the prevalence of violent crime, not just locally, but regionally. As a result, he believes Carry Secure could seriously assist in the struggle against crime. The 17-year-old boy held in connection with Friday's shooting death of Kismar Shaquille Codrington has been remanded to prison. Isaiah Abraham Cody Wiggins of Scarborough Christ Church had his day in court today, where he faced the charge of serious bodily harm. Codrington, 23 years, of Browns Avenue, Bayville, St. Michael, was shot whilst at Bay Street, St. Michael. Wiggins appeared before Magistrate Christy Cuffey Sargent in the District A Magistrates Court. He is to reappear in court tomorrow. The woman held over the weekend after guns and ammunition were seized at a bar in the Pine, St. Michael, has been remanded to prison. Hazel Donna Greenidge, 47 years, of Block 11B, Bottoms Close, the Pine, St. Michael, appeared in court to answer to the offences of possession of a firearm without a valid license and possession of ammunition without a valid permit. These offences were committed on Sunday whilst at Academic Sports Bar, Regent Hill. Reports are that police, while conducting a search warrant, observed Greenidge was concealing a bag on the exterior of the bar. The bag was retrieved and searched, and 1 firearm and 7 rounds of ammunition were discovered. Now, during the operation, police also seized 2 firearms, including an assault rifle and 27 rounds of ammunition and 1 magazine containing 7 rounds of ammunition. A total of 7 firearms and 85 rounds of ammunition of various calibers were seized. 3 of the guns were found on board 2 minibuses parked outside. A total of 17 marijuana plants ranging from seedlings to 2 feet tall were also discovered being cultivated in the environs of the bar. We'll take a short break here and come back with more news. Barbadians looking for holiday, business and study opportunities overseas will soon have a greater range of options in their grasp. Minister of Foreign Affairs Maxine McLean says her ministry is continually working on behalf of the citizens, private sector and non-governmental organizations to provide access to more markets. She revealed that through visa waiver programs, it will soon be easier for Barbadians to travel as far as the Middle East.
We have concluded a visa waiver agreements with China, for example. I know that India is on the list, and we would have submitted recently the final draft, and I believe is accepted to the United Arab Emirates. They approached us for a reciprocal visa waiver agreement.
Opposition Barbados Labour Party Senator Wilfred Abrams was challenged by government senators as he sought to criticize the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan. Senator Abrams says the BLP wants to see Barbados back on track, stressing that the opposition was not about creating pandemonium. Overall, he is against the estimates.
These estimates are fiction. The projected revenues are optimistic and inflated. The expenditure is underestimated. There will be a whole host of supplementals because these estimates are not representative of the debt the government is going to incur and the expenses and expenditure for the next year.
There was a festive atmosphere in the Bridgetown port this morning as the Carnival Fascination returned to Barbados. 2,300 guests came aboard the vessel on its first Barbados stop since its refurbishment and assisting relief efforts in St. Croix after Hurricane Maria struck last year. They were greeted to performances from the Royal Barbados Police Force Band along with samples of local rum. While recounting his experience in the British Virgin Islands, cruise director MARCELO Alvarado says the relief effort was life-changing.
It was very touching, not only to see the people in St. Croix, but after the hurricane, it was difficult not only for guests but also for us because we knew what actually happened in the islands and that we needed to leave and we didn't know what was the date to come back. I remember the moment when it was like a 5-year-old kid from Puerto Rico when we were disembarking the guests in Puerto Rico. He came without knowing me and he hugged me and he said, "Thank you for keeping us safe during this hurricane season." That really touched me.
Meanwhile, some of the visitors told CBC they are happy to be in Barbados for the first time.
We just got off the ship, so I'm looking to see what all Barbados has to offer. I know this is the home of Rihanna, so just looking forward to seeing what's going on. Won't be here long, unfortunately.
I'm definitely going to do some excursions and walk around to the island. It's going to be nice.
Feels good. Feels nice. I want to get out here and experience it.
With Barbados' growing aging population, there's a need for better sex education among older people. The registration department has attempted to fill this void through its activities for Love Safely Week. That's according to organizer for the week of activities, Tracia Sargent.
We're finding mature populations actually living longer and being sexually active. So we were looking to have some sensitization in terms of HIV and AIDS, STIs, especially with the females as well. Because the females, you know that we're more vulnerable in terms of actually getting those illnesses and their viruses as well.
Ms. Sargent made the comments during the final event for the week, a balloon release on the steps of the Supreme Court. The event was dual purpose as it served as both a memorial for people who have died as a result of HIV and AIDS, and it was also a message of hope for those living with the disease. Ms. Sargent believes the week of activities was a success.
Love on Intercom. We had some rapid testing going on. We also had our best dress competition. We had a panel discussion entitled Taboo, where we had everything sexually related. We spoke about condom demonstrations, even condom distribution as well. So this week was a fantastic and phenomenal week where we encourage persons not only to love safely but also love amongst themselves, so that we as groups can know our status and also live healthy as well.
All funds raised from the week's activities will go to the HIV Food Bank. We'll take a look at stories making headlines across the region after the break.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
The unemployment rate in St. Lucia rose sharply in the fourth quarter of 2017. Despite the increase, the overall unemployment rate is down slightly, as we hear in this report from HTS St. Lucia.
The average national unemployment rate remained over 20% in 2017 at 20.2%. The jobs market in 2017 performed marginally better than 2016, when unemployment averaged 21.3%. There was virtually no change in youth unemployment at 38.5% last year. Jobs were harder to come by during the fourth quarter and traditional holiday shopping period in 2017, as the unemployment rate rose to 23.2% from 21.6% in 2016. Since 2012, the fourth quarter rate has remained stubbornly above 20%. During the third quarter of 2017, the unemployment rate stood at 16.8%. The record low third quarter job figures were the bone of political contention in Parliament, prompting the Department of Statistics to clarify the numbers. The last time the unemployment rate fell below 20% in the third quarter was 8 years ago in 2009. Prime Minister Alan Shastney credited his administration for reducing the national unemployment rate. By the Prime Minister's accounts, national unemployment has gone down by 25% since the UWP assumed office after the June 6 general elections of 2016. There were minimal gains across the top job sectors in the fourth quarter. Most of the job hires were made in the wholesale, retail, and the auto repairs sectors, which increased from 15.4% in the fourth quarter of 2016 to 15.8% in the fourth quarter of 2017. Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Ubaldus Raymond, says St. Lucia's economy is on the upswing. Following a meeting with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, he said government's reforms are paying off. Dr. Raymond says that despite challenges, the local economy is recovering owing to fiscal policies rolled out by the Alan Shastney administration and a buoyant global economy.
Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit says a collaborative approach is needed to realize the government's idea of making the island the first climate-resilient country in the world. Mr. Skerrit, during a national rebuilding and economic partnership consultation, stated the government in the wake of Hurricane Maria cannot do it alone.
The world is rooting for us, ladies and gentlemen. But we, as residents of this fair land, must play our part. It is often said that timing is everything. I pose it this morning that timing is critical to the pursuit and attainment of our goal to become a climate-resilient nation. Attempting this endeavor before Hurricane Maria would have been fraught with many challenges, and the prognosis for success would have been minimal. Dominica cannot operate in a vacuum.
Mr. Skerrit is confident of success.
over the past decade, we would have been thinking resilience in terms of our experiences. None of us would have imagined prior to September of 2017, 2 Category 5 hurricanes impacting the region in quick succession. Today, we can all benefit from a vision of hindsight. And I think we are in a better position now to not only articulate our vision to the world, but also to exploit fully the expertise and resources that have been placed at our disposal to make this all happen.
In the Bahamas, wreckage from a small plane that crashed off Andros over a month ago has been found. The plane was carrying 6 Bahamians.
Officials from the Air Accident Investigation Division have confirmed the wreckage discovered by fishermen off Andros last week is the plane that crashed into waters off Andros in January, killing all 6 passengers on board. Lead investigator Delvin Major issued a statement Tuesday that when the fishermen returned to Andros Monday, local police accompanied them to the site where they found additional parts of the plane and more human remains. He says a salvage team, including the Defense Force, as well as local police, the fishermen, and the AAID, will return to recover the aircraft and additional remains. Outside Cabinet Tuesday morning, Tourism and Aviation Minister the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar said officials were trying to locate the wreckage, but it was not clear yet if the airplane in the video was the one that crashed on January 17th, and officials were attempting to locate the wreckage.
It's important that we get the right plane. As has been brought to my attention, there was a similar plane that went missing about 2 to 3 years ago. So we just want to make sure that we have the right plane that relates to the crash that happened in January. So we haven't confirmed that yet.
The North Andros community was dealt a blow following the ordeal, with families unable to get closure, as all of the bodies had not been recovered following that crash that saw the airplane break apart upon impact. The minister says officials are staying on top of the latest developments and are also mindful of the sensitivity of the matter. He responded this way when asked if any officials had resumed the search since the video surfaced.
What we're trying to do is find the exact coordinates of the wreckage. Once that's done, if we know exactly where it is, then the Accident Investigation Department really doesn't need a search and rescue, so we know where it is. So they can go straight to the scene and they can begin to process it. They got a salvage company on standby, the insurance company's on standby. Everybody wants to know what is this wreck and what it relates to so that it can be processed. We're as anxious as the family to bring this to a sensible conclusion.
The children's Mashramani costume and float parade in Guyana has been hailed as one of the biggest. This year's float parade was observed under the theme, Let's Cooperate and Celebrate Republic 48.
The innovation of Guyana's emerging sector and the fauna of the sea were featured among the creations that were all on display as thousands of children flocked the streets of Georgetown for this year's Children's Mashramani Float Parade. It's considered to have been the largest children's parade in recent times. From toddlers in nursery to teens in secondary, they all dance and prance to local and regional music. There were approximately 3,000 students on the road this year, surpassing the total of last year. Here are some of the highlights. Among the favorites was this float, which was actually made of over 30 students from the Graham's Hall Primary School here on the East Coast. The float from Region 10 wowed the crowd of spectators as a spinning portion of the float depicted an oil refinery in Linden. The band also looked the part.
Walk on, 'cause you run the road. No other girl can't pop in your mouth. So independent girl jump and scream out. Make them know you got a whining skill. When you a whine, you a turn on the chill. Every man love how you're whining.
There were also costume malfunctions during the parade.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
We'll take a peek into the world of sports next, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Anti-doping rule violations number 2. Doping is defined as the use or attempted use of a banned substance and/or prohibited method. This fact is brought to you compliments the National Anti-Doping Commission.